There is a miracle bean buried in the salt marshes of eastern China that can grow in water containing 35,000 parts per million of sodium chloride, which is the concentration of seawater. Soybeans die at 2,000 parts per million. Corn dies at 1,500 parts per million. This plant produces 847 pounds of protein per acre, even in conditions that would sterilize modern farmland in 48 hours. For 3,247 years, it fed entire coastal populations during famines when rice fields flooded with seawater and nothing else would grow. In 1974, archaeologists at the Hunan Provincial Museum excavating Han Dynasty Tomb No. 3 near Changsha found 17 sealed ceramic jars containing 89,000 preserved seeds. Carbon dating at Beijing University confirmed they were 2,168 years old. When botanist Dr. Li Mingshan analyzed the contents, he discovered something impossible: Vigna marina cultivars that had been specifically bred for saltwater agriculture. Seeds engineered to thrive in 40,000 parts per million salinity. The Chimin Yaoshu Agricultural Manual from 544 AD documents systematic cultivation across 180,000 acres of tidal zones in Jiangsu province alone. Farmers timed harvests with 28-day lunar cycles. They recorded yields of 423 pounds per acre from lands containing more salt than the Dead Sea. The Tang Dynasty Agricultural Treatise details 17 distinct varieties bred for different salinity levels, different seasons, and different tidal depths. This was not survival food. This was precision agriculture. The Song Dynasty Compendium of Coastal Farming describes regions feeding populations that exceeded 400,000 people, primarily on crops that required saltwater irrigation. Not despite the salt. Because of it. Archaeological evidence from 6 coastal provinces proves continuous cultivation for over 1,000 years. Entire regional economies were built on plants modern science claimed could not exist. This is Vigna marina, the halophytic miracle, the crop that could feed the world as seas rise and farmland floods. And the one industrial agriculture spent 7 decades ensuring disappeared from human memory. How do you feed 400 million people when 20% of your farmland floods with salt water every decade? The Chinese solved this 2,000 years ago using plants that industrial agriculture spent billions trying to engineer in laboratories. In 1982, Dr. Chen Weiming at the Chinese Agricultural Academy obtained seeds from a 73-year-old farmer, Wang Desheng, in Zhejiang province. Wang was the last generation still cultivating what their ancestors called haido, sea beans. This discovery felt like a miracle. Chen's nutritional analysis revealed numbers that seemed impossible. 47.3% protein by dry weight, higher than soybeans at 38%, and higher than any legume in commercial cultivation. Protein was off the charts. But Chen's salt tolerance experiments broke every assumption about plant biology. While soybeans died at 2,000 parts per million salinity, and corn died at 1,500 parts per million. Vigna marina was producing peak yields at 35,000 parts per million, full seawater concentration. Dr. Chen's team at the Institute of Crop Science documented 3 complete harvests annually in tidal conditions with no freshwater irrigation. Salt tolerance in practice. The Journal of Experimental Botany published Chen's findings in 1983. It reported exceptionally high protein content combined with extreme halophyte characteristics in Vigna marina, representing agricultural capabilities unknown in modern crop science. Unknown was the only way to describe it. Professor Jin Xiaoping at Nanjing Agricultural University analyzed 17 traditional varieties collected from elderly farmers across coastal China. Each cultivar was optimized for specific salinity levels between 15,000 and 45,000 parts per million. Genetic analysis revealed 3,000 years of selective breeding had produced plants with salt tolerance mechanisms more sophisticated than anything in modern biotechnology. The Chinese Journal of Applied Ecology documented traditional farming systems where entire watersheds were managed for saltwater agriculture and where farmers understood tidal patterns better than marine biologists. They developed seed selection protocols that produced varieties adapted to monsoon flooding, typhoon salt spray, and seasonal salinity fluctuations. Jin's research team found cultivation records spanning the Han, Tang, Song, and Ming dynasties, including agricultural tax documents showing 200,000 acres under halophyte cultivation in Shandong province alone during the Northern Song period. Then the Green Revolution arrived. Government subsidies flowed to hybrid soybeans that required freshwater irrigation and annual seed purchases. The Three Rural Issues policy of 1978 promoted crops that generated foreign currency exports. Agricultural extension agents told traditional farmers that their methods were seen as backward and inefficient. The last commercial Vigna marina cultivation was recorded by the Shandong Agricultural Bureau in 1987. By 2000, the crop existed only in scattered wild populations along remote coastlines. The knowledge holders were dying, the seeds were disappearing, and institutional agriculture had already moved on. In 2019, Dr. Sarah Flowers at the International Rice Research Institute discovered Vigna marina was doing something biologically impossible. It was actively purifying contaminated soil while producing food. Using scanning electron microscopy, Flowers mapped specialized bladder cells along leaf surfaces, microscopic salt pumps that extracted sodium chloride from plant tissues and expelled crystallized salt through the epidermis. The root system revealed an even more impossible mechanism. Nature Plants published her findings. Vigna marina roots function as reverse osmosis membranes, selectively absorbing water and nutrients while actively rejecting salt ions at the cellular shell level. Industrial desalination requires massive energy infrastructure and it costs $1,847 per acre-foot of purified water. This bean was performing the same process while producing 847 pounds of protein per acre using nothing but sunlight and seawater. Dr. James Hansen's team at the University of California documented the soil improvement effect. 3 years of Vigna marina cultivation reduced soil salinity from 28,000 parts per million to 4,200 parts per million, transforming poisoned earth back into fertile farmland. This discovery coincided perfectly with humanity's greatest agricultural crisis. The Journal of Climate Change Biology projects 630 million people in coastal areas will face severe saltwater intrusion by 2050. The International Soil Science Society reports 20% of irrigated farmland globally is already damaged by salinization, with 250,000 acres lost annually, where corn requires 20 inches of annual fresh water and fails above 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Vigna marina completes its life cycle on pure seawater and accelerates growth at 104 degrees Fahrenheit. The Agricultural Water Management Journal documented yields increasing 340% under heat stress conditions that killed conventional crops. Professor Edwards at Yale compared Vigna marina photosynthesis to her breakthrough purslane research. She said, "This represents convergent evolution toward impossible efficiency. It is like discovering a locomotive engine that burns coal and electricity simultaneously in the same firebox, not by switching between them, but by using both fuel sources to power the same mechanical process." The plant that could save agriculture from climate change was not waiting to be invented. It had been perfected 3,000 years ago and was growing wild in exactly the conditions where conventional farming was failing. but someone wanted it gone. The global soybean industry generates $147 billion annually. Every acre planted with Vigna marina eliminates the need for Monsanto seeds, Cargill fertilizers, and John Deere irrigation systems. You cannot patent a 3,000-year-old landrace. Bayer Monsanto holds 674 patents on genetically modified soybeans. 0 patents exist on halophytic alternatives that outperform their laboratory creations. Internal Rockefeller Foundation documents from 1962, declassified in 2008, reveal the Green Revolution's explicit strategy to prioritize crops requiring technological inputs that create agricultural modernization dependence. Traditional varieties like Vigna marina were classified as inefficient, not because they produced less food, but because they generated 0 corporate profits. Monsanto spends $2.8 billion annually on biotechnology research. Their strategic plan from 2019 to 2024 allocates 0 funding to halophytic crop development. DowDuPont controls 35% of global seed sales through varieties requiring annual repurchasing. Cargill processes 70% of global soybean production through infrastructure designed around freshwater-dependent crops. The $68 billion irrigation industry exists because industrial agriculture grows freshwater crops in arid regions instead of salt-tolerant crops in coastal areas. The $23 billion soil remediation industry profits from cleaning salt-contaminated farmland instead of using plants that thrive in saline conditions. Chinese agricultural policy shifted decisively in 1978 under Deng Xiaoping's economic reforms. The Rural People's Commune system was dismantled to prioritize export crops that would generate foreign currency. Soybeans were grown for Western livestock, cotton for global textile trade, and other crops required imported seeds and chemical inputs. The Journal of Rural Studies documented systematic suppression of traditional knowledge, noting that agricultural colleges stopped teaching halophytic cultivation. Research funding flowed exclusively to biotechnology labs, and extension services actively discouraged traditional farming methods. The World Bank's agricultural assistance programs required recipient countries to adopt approved seed varieties from multinational corporations. Traditional seeds were excluded from development projects as unimproved germplasm. By 2020, over 1 billion people lived in areas facing severe soil salinization. Rather than reviving salt-tolerant agriculture, the international response relied on expensive desalination infrastructure and genetically modified crops that increased dependence on chemical inputs. The solution that had fed empires was reclassified as a weed. The corporations that could have preserved this knowledge chose quarterly profit over human survival. The solution exists. It is growing wild right now. Dr. Chen's 2018 expedition located 23 distinct Vigna marina populations across Jiangsu, Zhejiang, and Guangdong provinces. Each variety adapted to specific salinity ranges, coastal cultivars thriving in 45,000 parts per million brackish water, estuarine types optimized for 25,000 parts per million seasonal flooding, and inland varieties surviving 15,000 parts per million soil contamination. 3,000 years of selective breeding are compressed into genetic libraries worth more than any corporate laboratory. Traditional farmer Li Changming in Hong Kong's Mai Po wetlands secretly maintained seed stocks for 47 years, preserving 17 varieties his grandfather cultivated commercially before 1949. Climate reality is accelerating beyond agricultural adaptation. The journal Science Advances reports sea levels rising 3.4 millimeters annually, pushing saltwater into coastal aquifers faster than predicted. Bangladesh's Department of Agricultural Extension projects losing 1.77 million acres of farmland to salt intrusion by 2030. Current policy treats this as a disaster, requiring expensive technological intervention, seawalls costing $14 billion, desalination plants requiring massive energy infrastructure, and genetically engineered crops dependent on controlled environments. The alternative recognizes rising seas as opportunities for superior agriculture. Vigna marina identification is straightforward. These are climbing legumes with thick, waxy trifoliate leaves and clusters of purple flowers. Pods are 3 to 4 inches long and contain 10 to 15 black seeds with distinctive white hilum scarring. They are found in salt marshes, tidal zones, and in areas with brackish water intrusion. Harvest timing determines viability. Collect pods when they rattle, but before splitting occurs naturally. Seeds maintain 85% germination rates after 30 years in cool, dry storage. Professor Jin's protocols recommend soaking seeds in 15,000 parts per million saltwater for 24 hours before planting. Traditional cultivation knowledge still exists. Farmer Wang Desheng documented rotating 3 varieties seasonally and maintaining genetic diversity through careful phenotype selection. His handwritten notes detail optimal planting lunar phases, companion planting with salt-tolerant grasses, and harvest techniques that maximize seed production. Learn to see saltwater intrusion as a premium agricultural opportunity, not an agricultural catastrophe. Every person preserving Vigna marina seeds preserves humanity's climate adaptation future. The seed industry does not want you to know the highest protein crops never needed patents or chemicals. The irrigation industry does not want you to know plants that thrive in conditions that destroy conventional agriculture. Industrial agriculture does not want you to know the solution to our civilization's greatest challenge was perfected 3,000 years ago. It is called the Chinese miracle bean. It is feeding the future. It is growing wild where nothing else survives.